Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding Mishnah Berurah Chelik Beis, and Mirz Hashem, today we will be completing Daf Ayin Beis, Amid Beis, learning Daf Ayin Gimel, Amid Aleph, and I hope we will be completing Siman Kuf Ayin, which will take us into Ayin Gimel, Amid Beis. Before we begin, our learning today should be a schus for Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael, Hanesuna Batzara Bashivya Ha'imdim Bein Bayamu Bein Bayabasha Hamakayim Yirachem Aleim V'Yitzei Mitzar L'Rvacha Me'afelo L'Oiro Mishibud L'Geula Hashta Bagalo of Izman Kariv Neymar Amen. Our learning should be a schus Refuah Shalema for Ariel Yosef ben Miriam Rezel and Meir ben Chayesara. We pick up Siman Kuf Ayin Sif Tez Zayin, 2 lines from the bottom in the Shulchan Aruch on Ayin Beis, Amid Beis. We are continuing to learn halachah's version of proper etiquette at a seudah. Says the Mechaber Sif Tez Zayin, Lo yishte me hakos, do not drink from a kos, do not drink from a cup, v'yitein lechaveroi, and then pass the same cup with drink still inside it to your chaver, so that your chaver should continue drinking from the same cup and the same drink that you drank from. Says the Mechaber, you should not do this, mipnei sakanas nefashos. The Mechaber says you should not do this because this could present actual mortal danger. Sakanas nefashos. Says the Mishnah Berurah, very interesting Mishnah Berurah. Mishnah Berurah is kat lamed zayin, v'yitein lechaveroi. Now, what are we saying here? If you drink from a cup, and then you take that same cup with drink still in it, so you didn't complete the drink, and you pass it along to your friend so that your friend should now take a drink from it, the Mechaber is telling us that this poses sakanas nefashos. Says the Mishnah Berurah kat lamed zayin, what's the sakanas nefashos? Shema machmas habusha, it could be that due to embarrassment, your friend is going to be too embarrassed to turn the kais down. So he's going to accept the kais and he's going to drink. So Shema machmas habushi yekabel chaveru mimenu. Maybe your friend will accept the kais from you. V'yishte bal karchai, and he'll drink against his will. He really doesn't want to drink from that kais. He's famished from that kais that you just drank from. But he's embarrassed to say anything, so he's going to take it and he's going to drink. V'ulai chaveroi moisle lishtois mimashe shir. And it could be that really he's famished, he's repulsed by the idea of drinking from a drink that you just drank from. Why? De'efsher dinis arev rokai sham, because he recognizes that your saliva might be present in the drink, right? When you take a cup and you drink from a cup, there's definitely a possibility of a certain amount of backflow from your mouth into the kais. Now you take the kais and you pass it off to your chaver. Your chaver is repulsed by the idea of drinking this because some of your saliva might be present inside that drink. He doesn't want to drink it, but he's too embarrassed to say anything, so you might drink it anyway. And then the yechla al yedei, and then because of this, maybe he will take ill. Now the Mishnah Berurah does not make very clear what exactly it is that's causing the second person to become ill. The Mishnah Berurah is explaining to us that really the recipient of the cup doesn't want to drink from the cup because he's repulsed by the very idea of drinking from the cup that you just drank from, because he recognizes that your saliva might be in it, but he might drink from it anyway out of embarrassment, and then he might come to become ill. But the Mishnah Berurah does not say why he's becoming ill. But now the Mishnah Berurah continues, Ulafizeh, according to this, if this is the problem, so then dafka im noisnoi liyadoi. So then the only problem is, if you take a kais and you drink from it, and then you pass it off to your friend and you actually put it into his hand, then we're afraid that he might be too embarrassed to refuse the drink, and he might drink from it and become ill. Avalim manichoy lefanov. But if you take the cup and you drink from it, and then you put it down in front of your friend on the table, v'hu lokeach ma'atzmai, and then your friend goes and picks it up to drink from it, les lanba, then that's not a problem. It's only a problem if you mamish hand it to him, then he's going to feel pressured to drink from it, and you might cause him to become ill. But if you put it in front of him at the table and he picks it up of his own volition, that's not a problem. Now, says the Mishnah Berurah, Taz Kosav, the Taz writes, now realize that the Taz lived in the late 1500s to the middle 1600s. The Taz Kosav, the Taz writes, Ani ro'isi b'tzavos Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol. I saw in the tzavah of Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol, Shemazhir ma'oid, he warned very strongly, Shaloi lishtais mima sheshir chaveroi, that you should never drink from the leftovers of your friend. Why? Ki shema yesh lo chayli b'sarich gufay, because Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol wrote, and this is somebody who lived before the Taz, and the Taz lived, like I said, in the late 1500s, mid 1600s. The Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol wrote in his tzavah, never drink from the leftover of your friends. Why? Because it's possible that your chaver has an illness. It's possible that he has a chayli b'sarich gufay. V'yetze ruach mipiv la'oisai shir. And a ruach of that illness will go into the drink. And when he's passing you the cup with the leftover drink, that illness, so to speak, is now present in the drink. Ayin sham. So we already see that Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol in his tzavah was already writing about the transmission of illnesses through drinking from the same drink as somebody else. However, the Mishnah Berurah says, take a look at the Mechaber later on in Sif Chav Beis in this Siman. We'll see it later today. The Mechaber writes that if you drink from a cup and you want to pass it to your friend so that your friend should drink from it, what makes that allowable is if you wipe off the area of the cup where your chaver put his mouth, then you could drink from it. And then the Mechaber also says, Oy b'mayim, or you could cleanse the area that your friend put his mouth on with water. How? What you could do is if your friend passes you a cup of water, so you could take the cup, tilt it, pour out a little bit over the lip of the cup where your friend drank from, and then you could drink from it. So the Mechaber later on in Sif Chav Beis allows for the possibility to drink from a cup that your friend drank from, so long as you cleanse the area where he put his mouth. Now, says the Mishnah Berurah, it would seem that the Mechaber, when he writes this, is going against what Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol wrote. Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol wrote that the problem is that if Ruvain drinks from a cup and Ruvain has a chayli b'sarich gufay, that illness might go into the remnants of the drink. And now when you drink that drink, you're going to pick up the illness. It seems that the Mechaber wasn't concerned about that. The only thing that the Mechaber is concerned about is that your mouth should not come into contact with the unclean area of the cup that your chaver's mouth came into contact with. So if you cleanse that area of the lip of the cup after your chaver drank from it, or you pour some water over that area of the cup, then you can drink from it. Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol says that there might be a chayli in the drink remaining in the cup. It sounds like the Mechaber wasn't concerned with that. Now the Mishnah Berurah doesn't like this. The Mishnah Berurah doesn't want to see a stira between the Mechaber and Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol. So he comes up with a way to answer the problem. He says like this: V'ulai, it's possible to say, the Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol Mairi, Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol is talking about a case, the Harishon Shashasa, where the first person who drank from the cup, Haya Adam She'ein Onu Makirin Oisai, it's somebody who we don't know well, Imhu Bari. We don't know if he's a healthy individual. The Oz Yesh Lachash Yoiser, and he brings this down from the Eliyah Rabbah, and he says, take a look at the Pri Begadim. So basically what the Mishnah Berurah is saying is, it could be that when the Mechaber said the only thing you have to be concerned about is the area of the cup where your chaver put his mouth on it, so as long as you cleanse that, you could drink from the same cup. That's talking about a healthy individual. If we're talking about an unhealthy individual, then we don't want you to drink from the cup at all. Or, even if you're not certain if the person who drank from the cup is a healthy individual or not, don't take a risk, because then we have Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol's concern that there might be illness present in the remnants of the drink in the cup. Now we go to Sif Yud Zayin, bottom line, Ayin Beis, Amud Beis. Says the Mechaber, V'lo yishte kois, you should not drink a kais dry. Don't drink a whole kais, and now the kais is empty. V'yanichenu al shulchan, and then put the empty kais back down on the table. Or rather, yechazenu b'yadai, you should hold the empty kais in your hand ad sheyavei hashamish, until the waiter comes, v'yitnenu lai, and then give him the empty cup. Says the Mishnah Berurah cut lamed ches v'yanichenu al shulchan she'ein zed dar kavod. This is not about kavodic thing to do. Lahaniach al shulchan kais rekam, to put an empty cup back on the table. He brings this down from the Lavush. I meant to look in the Lavush. I'm not certain why the Lavush says that this is not derech kavod. I seem to remember, again, what we're seeing over here in Sif Tez Zayin, and what we're going to see later on again, is the possibility of more than one person drinking from the same kais. Now, when it is societal norm that more than one person should use the same kais, you don't want to put an empty kais down on the table because somebody's going to reach for it to go take it and drink and then realize it's empty. So you could have a kais, an empty kais sitting on the table, and 5 people during the meal are going to be, oh, it's empty, oh, it's empty, oh, it's empty. Therefore, it's not derech kavod. Don't leave an empty kais on the table. Instead, give it to the shamish for the shamish to dispose of it properly. To the top of Ayin Gimel Amud Aleph, top line, middle of the line, Sif Yud Ches, says the Mechaber. Very interesting halacha. Hanichnas l'seudah, when you come into a seudah and now you're being served a course. So sometimes you get served a course. Let's say the Farspeis, the appetizer, is some kind of what's popular nowadays, like a pulled brisket baraka, and you happen not to like pulled brisket. So they go and they put the pulled brisket in front of you, and your reaction might be, "Oh, it's okay. I don't want this," and you give it back to the waiter. Says the Mechaber, you should not do that, and we'll see in the Mishnah Berurah 2 different reasons for perhaps why you should not do this. Says the Mechaber, Sif Yud Ches, Hanichnas l'seudah, when you come into the seudah, lo yikach chelkai, don't take your portion if you don't want it, v'yitnenu l'shamish, and return it to the shamish. Don't do that. And the Mechaber says, why shouldn't you do that? Shema ye'era dvar kilkul basuda, because by doing that, you might cause a kilkul. You might cause a disturbance in the seudah. Now, the Mechaber doesn't tell you what the disturbance is. The Mishnah Berurah will give us 2 possibilities. Or rather, says the Mechaber, what should you do if you don't want the portion? Yikochenu, take the portion, v'yanichenu, and leave it in front of you, v'achakach, and then afterwards, after people finish that course, yinenu lo, give it back to the shamish. So what's the Mechaber saying? Again, you're sitting by the table. The waiter is coming with the Farspeis. He's giving everybody the pulled brisket baraka. He gives it to you. Don't say, I don't want it. Take it, hand it right back to the shamish. Let it stay in front of you. Let it stay in front of you. Everybody will eat the Farspeis. When the Farspeis is finished and the waiter comes to serve the soup, then you'll give him the Farspeis and you'll tell him, it's okay, no thanks. That's what the Mechaber seems to be saying. Why? Says the Mishnah Berurah, Oiskat Lamites. Lo yikach chelkai. Don't take your portion and just give it back to the waiter. Habach Pirish Hatam. The Bach explains that the reason for this is Shenira Shechelkai Bezuya Be'enov. Because by doing this, what it really looks like, it looks like you received your portion from the waiter, you looked at it, and you turned your nose up. You looked at the portion, you said, bah, that's what they're serving me? Not good enough for me. I don't want it. So nira shechelkei bezuya beinov, by returning it right away, forthwith, to the waiter, it looks like it's bezuya to you. It's repulsive to you. It's not good enough to you. You don't want it. V'lei chavetzba. You don't want it. Umasar l'shamish, and that's why you're sending it back to the kitchen. V'lochein, and therefore yadichena lefanav. Instead, you should leave it in front of you, demare, so that you show shemekubel be'enov, that it is acceptable in your eyes. Ela delafisha ain't tzarich lechol, but you happen not to be hungry. So misara l'basayif l'shamish. So at the end of the course, you give it back to the waiter and you say, I wasn't really hungry. So again, what do we not want you to do? We don't want that the shamish gives you the portion, you look at it, you go, feh, and you give it right back to the shamish. It looks like it was bezuya to you. You're sending it back. I don't want this junk. Instead, put it down, let it stay in front of you. Everybody's eating. It'll stay in front of you. When the waiter comes back, you'll give it back to him and you'll say, I wasn't very hungry. That's what you should do. Now, if that's what pshat is in the Mechaber, we have to explain what did the Mechaber mean when the Mechaber said that the reason you shouldn't do this is Shema ye'ored dvar kilkul b'seudah, because it will make a disturbance in the seudah. What exactly is the disturbance? So the Mishnah Berurah explains. Umah shekasav ha-Mechaber dvar kilkul, when the Mechaber writes that you shouldn't do this because it will cause a disturbance, Ritzaino loymar, what he wants to say is, Shal yedezeh, if you will return it forthwith to the waiter, and you'll make it look like it's bezuya to you, it might cause a fight between the balabayis, the bal simcha, or the host, and the guest. When the host sees that the guest goes theh, the host might come and say, what, my food's not good enough for you? And then the guest responds, and then the host responds, and before you know it, there's a whole fight going on. We don't want fights. So that's pshat number one. That's the pshat of the Bach. Now the Mishnah Berurah brings another pshat. Ulavush, Pirish, the Lavush explains this differently. He says, Kipshutai. No, pshat over here in the Mechaber is very simple, exactly like the Mechaber writes. Because you should not return the course forthwith to the waiter. You know why? Because Shema yeh kilkul b'seudah, because maybe something will happen in the seudah, v'yitztarich lechelik hazeh, and you'll end up needing this portion, lechalik l'shar hamesubin, to divide it up amongst the other guests. So what is the Lavush saying? What the Lavush is saying is like this. Let's say there are 10 people sitting at the table, and you're one of the 10, and they come and they give you Friday night gefilte fish, and you don't want the gefilte fish. Don't say, no, it's okay, I'll pass on the gefilte fish and give it right back. You know why? Because maybe what will happen is, somebody is sitting by the table, he's about to eat his gefilte fish, and he knocks over his cup of Pepsi, and now his Pepsi went all over the gefilte fish, and he is not interested in drinking Pepsi-flavored gefilte fish. Guess what? Now your portion of gefilte fish that you wanted to return to the kitchen suddenly became necessary. Now you need it to give it to the fellow who spilled his Pepsi. So now, says the Lavush, the Mechaber is very good. It's mamish pshutai kemashmai. Says the Mechaber, don't return your course forthwith to the waiter. Why? Because Shema ye'ared dvar kilkul b'seudah, maybe something will go wrong during the seudah, like the Pepsi spilling on the gefilte fish, and you're going to need your portion to give it to somebody else or to divide it up amongst the other people by the table. So therefore, hold on to the portion, and if in the end you don't need it, so then in the end you'll return it to the waiter. That's the pshat according to the Lavush. The Kasav Taz, and the Taz writes, says the Mishnah Berurah, the Lefizeh, according to this, Ein tzarich lahamtin rak al achar she'aniach l'chol echad chelkei karoi. According to the pshat of the Lavush, you don't have to wait to return your portion until you see that everybody has a good portion, and your portion is not necessary. Then already you could return it. Kasav Magen Avraham, the Magen Avraham writes, Kisha oisa seudah, when you make a seudah for other people, derech eretz lahashkois ba'atzmoi lebesubin, it is proper derech eretz that you yourself should pour drinks for the people sitting around the table, k'di'isa b'kedushin lamed beis amid beis, like the Gemara in kedushin on lamed beis amid beis, which relates a story that happened with a group of Tanoim. I think it was Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Yeshua, I don't remember who else was there. Rabbi Gamliel was the host. I think it was by a chasana for Rabbi Gamliel's son. And you had over there Rabbi Yeshua. I don't think it was Rabbi Eliezer. I don't remember who else was there. But you had other Tanoim there. And Rabbi Gamliel went around. And Rabbi Gamliel served everybody their drinks. He went around, he was the Saramashkim, he went around pouring everybody their drinks. And some of them didn't want to accept it. Here it is, yeah. Ma'aseh Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Tzadok. So Rabbi Eliezer was there. Usually when you have Rabbi Yeshua, you have Rabbi Eliezer. So Ma'aseh Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yeshua, Rabbi Tzadok. Shayu Mesubin bebeis hamishte benoyisha Rabbi Gamliel. They were by the chassan of Rabbi Gamliel's son. V'haya Rabbi Gamliel oimed umashka aleim. Rabbi Gamliel was going around and pouring drinks for everyone. Nosad a kais l'Rebbe Eliezer. He extended a kais to Rebbe Eliezer. V'loy netaloi. Rebbe Eliezer didn't want to accept it. Nosad l'Rebbe Yeshua. He gave it to Rebbe Yeshua v'kiblai, and Rebbe Yeshua accepted it. Amaloi Rebbe Eliezer. Rebbe Eliezer commented to Rebbe Yeshua, and he said, Mazeh Yeshua, Anu Yoshvin v'Rab Gamliel oimen umashka aleinu. What, that we should sit here and Rabbi Gamliel should be our waiter? So what Rebbe Eliezer was telling Rebbe Yeshua was, I wasn't willing to accept it for Rabbi Gamliel. Sepastisht, Rabbi Gamliel, the Nasi, the Rosh Yeshiva, Rabbi Gamliel should be serving us drinks. It doesn't make any sense. Amalei, Rebbe Yeshua responded to Rebbe Eliezer and he said, Matzinu gadol mimenu sheshimesh. We have in our history somebody a lot greater than us who served as a waiter by a seudah. Avraham Gadol Adar Haya. Avraham Avinu was the Gadol Adar. The Kasav Bay, and the pasuk says by Avraham Avinu, V'hu Oimed Aleihem, that he was standing over the three malachim that came to him in Parshas Vayera, and he was serving them under the tree. Maybe you'll tell me, well, those were malachim, and Avraham Avinu realized that they're malachim. We know from learning the psukim and learning the Rashi that they appeared to him as Arabs. So he didn't think that they were malachim, and yet he stood over them and he served them. So it's not so terrible if Rabbi Gamliel would be serving us. So from this Gemara in Kedushin, the Magen Avram says, when you're the host, it is proper etiquette that you should go and you should pour the drinks for the Mesubin by yourself. Okay, now we go to Sif Yud Tes, 3 lines down in the beginning of the line. Says the Mechaber, Orchin hanichnosin eitzel bal habayis. When guests come in to the Bal Habayis' house for the seudah, Einom rasham litel milufnehem. They do not have the right to take food that was served to them, v'litain livnoi oila avdoi shel balabayis, and to give from that food to the son of the servant of the Bal Habayis. They have no right to do that. Eli in kein notloi rishus mi balabayis, unless they first ask permission from the Bal Habayis. So you come to the seudah and you sit down and you have some delicious buffalo batter dipped chicken nuggets in front of you for the farshbais, and the Bal Habayis' kid comes in and he's looking hungrily at your plate. You want to go take a fork and take a chicken nugget and give it to him. You're not allowed to do that. You can't give to the son or the servant of the Bal Habayis from the food that was put in front of you unless you have permission. What's the reason for this? We're going to see it's based on a story that happened in the time of Chazal. Says the Mishnah Berurah is called Mem Einom Rashoim. You're not allowed to do this. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Hu Takonas Chachamim, this was a Takonas Chazal, Mipnei Maisa Shahaya, because of a Maisa Shahaya. K'de'isa b'chulin tzadik dalin amid aleph. The story is related in the Gemara in Chulin, tzadik dalin amid aleph. Maisa b'adam echad. There was once an occurrence with one person, shezimein shloisha archim b'shnei batziris, where he invited 3 guests to his table in a year of hunger. All he had to serve them was 3 eggs. So it was a hunger year. He invited 3 guests. He mamshted their food. He gave each one of them an egg. So he distributed 3 eggs amongst them. Ba b'noi shel Bal Habayis, the son of the Bal Habayis came. Natal echad mehen chelkai. One of the guests took his egg, v'nasanloi, and gave it to the son of the Bal Habayis. V'chein sheni v'chein shlishi. All 3 guests, each one of them took their egg and gave it to the son of the Bal Habayis. So now the son of the Bal Habayis has 3 eggs. Ba aviv shel tinoik, the father of the child came, mitzai, and he found his son, shemachzik echad bepiv. He had 1 egg in his mouth, ushtayim biyadai, and 2 eggs, 1 in each hand. He got very angry. He thought that the son took the eggs from the guests. He didn't realize that the guests gave the kid the eggs. He thought that the kid took the eggs. Chabatoi bakarka, he knocked him to the ground, umeis, and never he killed him. Kevin Cherasa imai, when the child's mother saw what happened, also lagag, she went up to the roof, threw herself off, the nafla, she fell, umeisa, and she died. So in this Maisa Shahaya, we have a father that never killed a child, and then a mother who came and committed suicide. Afhu alalagag, then the father, seeing what happened, he also went up to the roof, v'nafal, and he threw himself off, he fell, umeis, and he also died. So the couple, the husband, the wife, and their child all died because of a Maisa where the guest gave their food to the son of the host, Ayin Sham. So because of this Maisa, we said you're not allowed to give the food off your plate to the son of the host or the Eved of the host without his permission. The Magen Avram writes about this, Ve'el Rabba, the Dafka b'Kahagav the Shas, the Gzeres Chachamim is only in a similar story to the story in the Gemara in Chulin. Sha'isa seudah mitzumtzemes, where you had mamsh a tiny bit to eat. You had a very mitzumtzum dikka seudah. You had a tiny little seudah. Umizbayish balabayis kishayachsa lehem, and therefore the balabayis would be terribly, terribly embarrassed. Over here, he invited 3 guests. He made sure he had an egg for each one of them, and now he doesn't have any food to give them. That's why he got so angry at the son. He's, Mamsh, I don't have any food to give them. I'm all embarrassed. That's why I got so angry. But if you're serving a seudah, you come to a seudah, and there's plenty of food on the table. There's chicken, there's potato kugel, a locha kugel, Yerushalmi kugel, and rice, and this and that, and schnitzel and meat. So nothing is going to be lost if you give something to a child. Then then you're allowed to give. Well, if he's in accordance with this, certainly if the meal is over and everybody ate, and there are leftovers, certainly you would be allowed to give to the child from the leftovers. The Rekech is very machmir in all of these cases, and he says you do not give if you're a guest, you don't give to a child of the host or to an Eved of the host under any circumstances. Ois Cotton Mem Aleph, the Mechaber said the child of the host, Oila Avdoi, or to his servant. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Yeshayim, there are those that say the Dafka La Avdoi Aser. You're not allowed to give to the Eved, the servant of the host. But to give something to the waiter who's serving the meal, that shari, that you're allowed to do. There are those that say that you're not allowed to give the waiter either. Okay, Sif Chaf, 4 lines down near the end of the line, Ayin Gimel Amid Aleph. Nikiyei Hadas Shebi Yerushalayim. The Nikiyei Hadas are the Talmidei Chachamim. Nikiyei Hadas, those who have pure das. What does that mean? That means Talmidei Chachamim. Talmidei Chachamim are people who learn Torah, and their entire das, all of their knowledge, their entire value system, their entire judgment system is nuki. It's all pure. What does it mean it's pure? It's all only informed and only affected by the Torah Kedosha. They don't have any outside influence on their das. Their das is a pure das Torah. So Nikiyei das, those of pure das, Shebi Yerushalayim, who lived in Yerushalayim. Now this is the Mechaber writing over here. It's the Mechaber writing that this is brought down from a Gemara in Sanhedrin. So apparently this was the Nikiyei das in the time of the Gemara. The Mechaber himself lived in Sfas. Nikiyei das Shebi Yerushalayim, lo yehayu mesubin b'seudah. They did not sit down to join a seudah, only if they knew who would be sitting together with them by that seudah, because it's an embarrassment to a Talmid Chacham to sit down together with an Amaretz by a seudah. Before we jump to conclusions, let's see what's going on over here. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Cotton Membeis, Lo Yahayu Mesubin, Afilu Besudis Mitzvah. This even means by a Sudis Mitzvah, like a bris, or a chasana, they wouldn't even sit down to a seudah mitzvah unless they knew who was going to be sitting with them, because it would be a gnai for them to sit with an am aretz. V'ayin b'biur halacha, but he tells us to take a look at the biur halacha. Says the biur halacha, dibra maschil loy hayu misubin. Ayin b'Mishnah Berurah b'shem achronim. He says, take a look at the Mishnah Berurah where I quote the achronim, and I wrote that even by a seudah mitzvah, the Talmidei Chachamim would not sit down unless they knew who was going to be eating with them, because it's a gnai to eat with an amoritz. This comes, says the Chavetz Chaim, from the Sefer Matei Moshe, v'lo yadati mekayroi. But he says, but I don't know the source. V'gam eino olam nizharin bazeh klal. And he says the Welt is not nizar in this at all. From the Gemara at the end in Brachas at the end of the 6th parak, Mem Gimel Amud Beis, the Isa Sham, where it says over there that Talmidei Chachamim didn't eat with Amaratzim because Dilma Asi Imshuche Basrayu, so that they shouldn't form a chever with the Amaratzim and get drawn after the Amaratzim. Gam kein raya klal hachmir. You have no raya from there to be makmir and not eat with Amaratzim either. The efshad lo shayche ela b'seudas rishus, because maybe that's only by an optional meal. Masha ein kein b'seudah shehi shal mitzvah. Efshad al yidei zeh shayach mashar b'chazal mitzvah be'idna da'asik be'magnim in yisur namaslei menachet. Who says that because of a fear that you might get drawn after the ways of Amaratzim, you shouldn't sit down to a seudah mitzvah with Amaratzim? If it's a seudah mitzvah, the mitzvah will protect you. And he goes on and on over here, and in the end, the Chavetz Chaim writes, certainly if there's a tayelis to have the Talmidei Chachamim with the Amaratzim, like he gives one example. Let's say the community is making a communal seudah for aniyim, and amongst the aniyim there are a lot of amaratzim, but you want the rav or the rabbanim of the town to join in this seudah, because that will be mechazik the inyan of the townspeople giving money to give meals to the aniyim. So then there's a big tayelis in the chachamim sitting down with the amaratzim. Then certainly the chachamim should sit down with the amaratzim. Sometimes there's a tayelis with the chachamim sitting down with the amaratzim because it teaches the amaratzim the proper way to act, and it uplifts the amaratzim. That's also tayelis. So then certainly the Talmidei Chachamim should eat with the Amaratzim. So it's not something to walk away from and say, oh, it's pasnish, I'm not sitting with Amaretz. It's a Beferi Shulchan Aruch. It says it's a gnai for Talmidei Chachamim to eat with Amaratzim, not pashut. You have to work your way through this whole biur halacha first, for sure. Sif Chaf Aleph, 3 lines off the bottom. Hashamish shahaya mishamesh al shnayim. If a waiter is serving 2 people by a seudah. So 2 people are sitting down, they washed, they're eating a seudah together, and now you have a shamish. The shamish, hareze oichel imahem, the shamish is allowed to go join them and eat with them, alfal pi sheloi nosnu loi rishus, even though he did not receive permission to join them at the seudah. He could go ahead and he could join them without rishus. Haya mishamish al shloisha, but if he was serving 3 people, he is not allowed to join with them, only if they gave him permission. Says the Chavetz Chaim, Ois Mem Gimel. Afal. So the first thing that you have to understand is, why is it that we're allowing the shamish to join the people eating by the seudah without rishus? Why is it that if there are 2, the shamish could go join? Says the Mishnah Berurah, the mistamin nisratzu lozeh, because the 2 people, by default, we assume that the 2 people would be very, very happy to have the shamish join them so that they have a 3rd. Why? Because now their benching gets uplifted and they have a mezumin. Umemela comes out from here. Let's say they didn't wash, so there's no question of zimun. Then then the waiter has no right to join the seudah without permission. Because of the Eliyarabba writes, the could be that if you have 9 Yidden eating together and they washed, the shamish could wash and join them without rishus in order to make a minyan. Yakal ha'asiri gam keleka b'lo rishus to b'stamanichalu kedei sheyehe zimun b'shem, so that they should have a minyan and they should be able to say nevarech le'elokeinu. Now, finally, we come to the final sif of this fascinating Siman Kuf Ayin. Bottom line, Ayin Gimel Amud Aleph in the Shulchan Aruch Sif Chav Beis. Says the Mechaber, Achar sheshasisa, after you drank from the kais of yayin, v'nishar yayin b'kais l'shtias chaverecha, and there's some wine left in the kais that your chaver could drink. So again, we're going back to this halachah of two people drinking from the same kais. Kaneach kanach mikoim nishikas hapeh mishum mius. What you should do is you should wipe off the area where you put your mouth, and let the next person drink. V'loy tishpaich. Don't just pour out the kais. Mishum bal tashkes. Aval akar shtias mayim. But if it's a cup full of water, shvoich mehem derech sham, then you could pour a little water out over the place where the mouth went to clean it, and we're not concerned with bal tashkes. Says the Mishnah Berurah, cut mem daled kaneach mikoim, clean off the place where the first person put his mouth. Ayin le'el b'sif tezayin b'masha kasav nisham. The Mishnah Berurah, this goes back to the beginning of the shir, where first we saw the halacha that you should never hand off a kais to the second person to drink from the same kais because it's sakanas nefashos. And we explained over here where the Mechaber is allowing you to do it by simply cleaning the lip of the kais. That's where we know that the first person who drank from it is a healthy individual. Over there where we say that you mamish don't drink from it at all, because like Rabbi Eliezer HaGadol said, there might be a chayli in the remnants of the drink, that's when we don't know the person and he might not be well. Eiskan memhei derech sham, the eitz of the Mechaber was, pour a little water out so it runs over the rim of the kais and it cleanses the area where the first person put his mouth. Says the Mishnah Berurah, cut memhei derech sham kedei lishtoif haroik, so that it washes off the saliva shenaga derech sham that came about on the lip of the kais where the first person's mouth went onto the kais. Now the Mishnah Berurah ends off this siman with some additional proper seudah etiquette. Says the Mishnah Berurah, take a look at what we're going to write later in Siman Reish Lamed Aleph Sivkat Nei Meinyani Achila, proper etiquette when it comes to eating. First of all, Yizar Ma'oid, you should take great care. Shaloi Lechel Leiv Behema Chaya Va'oif. You should not eat the heart of an animal, a domesticated animal like a cow or a lamb, Chaya, or a kosher, a chaya like a deer, va'oif, or fowl like chicken, duck, geese, quail. You should not eat the heart meat because it is kosher l'shikcha. It causes forgetfulness. Kasav El Yerabba b'shem shla, the El Yerabba writes in the name of the shla, Yetiv libai b'seudasai. A person should be happy when he sits down to eat his meal, im ma'at v'im harbe, whether he has only a little to eat or he has a lot. Yoichel pitay b'simcha. He should eat his bread, he should eat his meal b'simcha. Yoichal hatoiv. He should eat what's good. V'hamoyeloi l'rafua. And what is good for his guf. What is good, the words of the Chavetz Chaim are for refuah, but it means what will give him proper nutrition. V'loi masha orev loi lefisha. Not what seems sweet to him or pleasant to him at the moment. So don't just go into the kitchen and eat babka, because babka is what appeals to you now. Eat what's going to be healthy and nutritious for you. V'lo yishon samach la'achila, do not lay down to sleep very close to where you eat. Ela yamten achar achila, you should wait a little bit after you eat before you go to sleep. V'ayim barambam hilchas deis perek dalet sheherich midvarim elu v'hanagasam. He sends you to the Rambam in Hilchas Deis perek dalet, who goes deeper into all of these inyanim. Gam he'erich b'shla, the shla also writes at length, lizaher, to warn people meribu yachilu ushtia, from excessive eating and drinking. El yoichal v'yishter rak lahamid ulahavrois, says gufay, a person should eat and drink only what's necessary to support and to keep healthy his body, mezumin la'avodas hanefesh, so that it should be able, prepared and able to serve the neshama, avodas shamayim. Ubazer kol seudais of heavy seudas mitzvah. If a person eats and drinks this way, then every seudah of his is a seudas mitzvah, because he's eating in order to be able to serve Hashem Yisbarach. V'ayin sham el Yerabba, shehevi oid kama inyanim hanoigim be'inyan zeh. He sends you to the El Yerabba, who writes more on this topic. Now we're not done. We have the last words of the Ramah here to close out Siman Kuf Ayin, second line down in the Shulchan Aruch Ayin Gimel Amud Beis. Haga, says the Ramah, Achar kol achilascha achol melach. This is brought down from the Gemara, that after everything you eat, you should eat salt. And after all your drinking, shisei mayim, you should drink water. Like we're going to discuss later in Siman Kuf Ayin Tes. Venerally, however, it seems to me, says the Ramah, that this is true dafka only. When is it true that we say that achar kol achilascha achol melach? When do we tell you to eat salt after everything else that you ate? That's only if there's no sodium content in all the other foods that you ate. But if you had chicken soup that had a good healthy palmful of salt in it, and you had challah that had salt in it, and you have chicken that has salt, and you have potato kugel that definitely has salt, then you've already been yoitze eating your melach, and you don't have to eat salt after your meal. So too, when we tell you that after all your drinks you should drink water, that's only if the drinks that you drank until now did not contain water. But if you drank soda, which is essentially water, or you drank coffee, which is essentially water, or tea, which is essentially water, and that is the way we are noyeg. We are not careful about achilas melach and shtias mayim after the seudah mitam shenisbaer, for the reasons that we have explained here. Okay, thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The schus of limud HaTorah should be megan against Klal Yisrael. The Rebbeinu Shem should send Yeshua's, refuahs, parnasim, shidduchim to all those in need, and we should be zeichet to see the geula shleima with the bias god tzedek b'meherav yameinu. Amen. Be well.